so much. Awesome. Okay. Well, it's so nice to be here. I was telling Tanya that you guys are like the tip of the iceberg. You know, everyone knows how you guys are sharp. You all are connected. You guys are like the fact that you are encouraging Instagram and and TikTok and like it's amazing. It's amazing. And there are studies that show that people who are engaged like you guys live longer, have fuller lives.
All right.
Yeah.
We're just add that to the talk shop. Long life.
We are, yeah, so yes, I literally look at you guys as like the tip of this amazing iceberg full of people who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. And so I'm going to actually allow Tanya to come up and speak because we're talking about the New Year healthcare checklist. And with that in mind, the most important thing is having a primary care provider that you have a rapport with. Oftentimes I'll ask people, who's your primary care provider? And they're like, oh, you remember where Elvis Presley used to hit? And they don't know the name of their PCP. And that's because they don't see them regularly. If you see your PCP regularly, you know their name, they know your name, you can call them whenever you have issues. And so I would say that is the most important part of starting the new year strong. So I'm going to have Tanya come up. Tanya was also military. She is an amazing NP. I have gotten to know her over the last 2 years, and we literally are cut from the same fabric. So I'm excited for her to talk to you.
Excellent. Thank you. Good morning. I feel so short standing beside you. My name is Tanya McCaskill. As mentioned before, I am the founder of Triumph Agility Care. I am a PCP. It is very important for us to have a PCP. Many patients feel like, well, I go see my specialist, that's good enough. But however, that PCP kind of brings all the pieces together. As a PCP, we get to manage acute illnesses, whether it's sinus infections, upper respiratory infections, just things of that nature, and our chronic illness such as hypertension, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, even cholesterol issues that has kind of skyrocketed up to patients think I'm doing fine, I haven't had any problems, then they come and see me, not seeing a doctor, and that cholesterol is very elevated, and to the point where they're at a stroke level or possible coronary risk level is kind of high, putting them at risk of having a heart attack. So it's very important for us to see those patients so we can kind of monitor those patients, making sure that they are getting the medication that they need and making sure that they're eating healthy. My main focus is dietary. Our dietary needs kind of put things at bay. Also, as a primary care provider, we like to look at your family history because if we see that mom or dad or grandmama or granddaddy had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or diabetes, that kind of puts you at that same risk level. But if we can kind of combat that on eating healthy, it kind of put our chances down a little bit low, get us out moving. We also focus on getting you out moving better. So it's very important to have that PCP. We also make referrals out to those specialists that you need. A lot of patients come in, they drag and don't know why they're feeling so down. We start doing studies and we see, oh, you're anemic. Oh, your vitamin D is low. Let's start looking at these things. Oh, your thyroid level is too high or too low. Let's start getting things under control and trying to get you back. So it's very important to have a primary care provider. You might see us only once every 3 months, kind of depending on your chronic illnesses, or once every 6 months. So get in to see that primary care provider where you can take control of your health. Our motto, your health is your wealth. If you don't have your health, you do not have your wealth. So stay focused on that. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you, Sherry.
So one way I present the importance of a PCP is if you are the driver of your bus or the ship in my, everything I talk about has naval inferences. So if you are the pilot of that ship, then your PCP is your co-pilot. And you have tons of people on board. You've got your family, you've got your specialists, you've got friends, you've got groups, communities, but your PCP is the one that you walk hand in hand with into your future. And without that, you, again, like Tanya mentioned, you may end up thinking things are fine and then all of a sudden they're not. and it might be something that could have helped. And I think when it comes to like cholesterol, glucose, things like that, people have difficulty understanding that basically anything that changes the stickiness of your blood, whether it's high sugar, high cholesterol, then that increases the risk of a cardiac event or a stroke or things like that. And so I see a PCP as like your partner in life. If you find one that you don't quite flow with, find another one. There's literally a PCP, on every corner, but there are not many that come into your home. And she will go all over Shelby County. I have seen patients that she has seen. She has referred patients to me. I have referred patients to her, and she provides amazing care. And so next, it's a phrase that says you can tell a lot about someone by the people that they do life with. And I have been doing life with Josh Goldin for, every time I talk about it, it gets longer and longer. Right now, I'm like, we've known each other 59 years. That's how close we are. We feel like we've known each other that long. But honestly, it's been since about 2011 or 12. We worked at Crossroads together. I met him, and everywhere I go, we just continue to meet. And he is a wealth of information. I love presenting with him. We go to assisted living facilities, independent living facilities, and really work well together when it comes to educating people. And the whole goal is to just put people at ease so that they can receive what you're saying to them. Because if you're talking at this level, then people just can't not only understand it, but retain it. And so that's what I love about Josh. She is able to speak with common sense. I like to say there's 4 things that make someone a great clinician, and he is an amazing social worker. It's compassion, communication, but also kindness and competence. You can be the nicest person in the world, but if you're not competent, that's a concern. And he is all of that. Come on, Josh.
So Serrie and Tanya were in the military. I've seen documentaries on the military. I don't really think that makes much of a difference. I've been yelled at by people, so I think we're kind of same area. I think really especially this time of year, when it gets dreary outside and it rains for 12 days in a row and you're waiting for Noah's ship to come by, I think it's really important to find a group, do something new, go to the library, start a book club, learn, go to a gym, find a new exercise group. Pickleball, that sound drives me crazy, but learn pickleball and the knocking sound of that paddle and ball. But I think a lot of it really is just being able to be comfortable with who you are and where you're at in life and just enjoying what you need. And I think this time of year, you get hit with a lot of the seasonal issues. I know seasonal depression is a big deal. And a lot of times it's because you wake up, leave the house to go to work, and it is dark outside. And you go inside to where you're at, and you have lovely lights on all day and no sunlight coming in. So just kind of, for me, it's really just enjoying who you're with and being able to learn a new hobby or find a new habit or eat a little bit better, play pickleball. Or, there's always adult rugby leagues if you have some aggression issues. When you do that, Tanya, again, is a great PCP to go to when you get knocked a little bit too hard. Yes, she can get physical therapy. Yes. But I think those are probably the key points. It's really just get out and connect. That's it. Sure.
So, although, thank you for saying I don't look 52, I absolutely am like 52 and a half. I'm on the other side of 52. Oh, and so, as I have come into this season of my life, there are a lot of changes in my life. And I have had people say to me, like, I'll tell them, I'm really having some anxiety. And they're like, you've never said that. You've never had anxiety. Well, I did, but I covered it up very well. And, we all know about telling people not to cry wolf, right? But what I've realized is when we're strong people and we've done life and we've done well, and then we come to people and say, hey, I'm having anxiety. there is an issue with them believing you. And it's almost like you never cried wolf, so why are you crying now? And so that's a part of what I'm understanding. And I love that Josh mentioned depression, because it is so real. And most people, although there's lots of education, there's still a stigma, because people will say that they feel weak, or they don't want to pull on people, that they just don't want to admit to themselves that they're depressed. And, there's a scale that we use for depression. And it's called the PHQ-9. And basically, are there more than half of the days in your week where you're feeling sad, where you're not eating as much or eating too much, where you're not sleeping as much or sleeping too much, where you have what we call anhedonia, which means the things I used to enjoy, I just don't enjoy anymore. And then do you have fidgetiness or restlessness, or are you moving sluggishly, like I just can't, and then lastly, of course, are you guilty, or do you actually have thoughts of taking your life? And I think when I was around 20 in the military was the first time I learned that if you ask someone if they're suicidal, it doesn't make them kill themselves. A lot of times we feel like if I say, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Are you thinking of taking your life? Do you wish you weren't here? We feel like that's going to push them into that. But what I have found is most people will take a deep breath and be very grateful that you were strong enough to ask them that question. It's a very difficult question. And we often, after someone takes their life, most of us say, oh my gosh, I just had no idea they were struggling. And I like to think it sounds a little, I hope it doesn't sound trite, but when we talk to people and we feel that they're sad, what if we just took a deep breath and said, are you thinking of taking your life? If that becomes like our norm, where we're honest with people, like I'm concerned about you, then I just think one person at a time, it might make a difference. Because this time of year is very difficult for people. We have patients on hospice who are losing families. And it's just a difficult time. And our prayer is always that as they move forward in life, that this time of year is not a time where they just cry for the whole season, that they really can remember their family member and all the great memories they have with them. But I had been a nurse practitioner, a family nurse practitioner, for over 10 years, but I had done a lot of psychiatric med management. And so I have written more prescriptions for antidepressants and anxiety than you guys can imagine. And I got to the point where, although I know that medication is important, and that's another thing that a lot of us have difficulty with. If we take medication, then that means we're sick. But you, just like you can have liver failure or heart disease, you can literally have low serotonin levels. That is a physiological issue. It's not a sign of weakness. And taking that medication, it doesn't work quickly. This is what I tell people. It's not like you're going to take Paxil or Zoloft or Celexa or Wellbutrin and then feel better just like that. That is reassuring to me, because if I took a pill and I felt better, I'd be like, what in the heck is that? It works very slowly. Sometimes it takes 6 to 8 weeks to see improvement. But it literally is changing the levels of your neurotransmitters. So depression, anxiety is not a sign of weakness. It literally is just because life is hard. Life is difficult. We all have stories that we could tell. But so I had written so many prescriptions for medication, but really I realized that therapy is truly the difference maker. If we take medication, that's amazing, and it really can change our ability to receive therapy. It really can. But really, I think therapy is where life change happens. And so that's why I went back to get my psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner certification. And so now I'm dual certified. So I want to provide counseling to people like me who realize they've never cried wolf, but they need to. They need to take a break and take care of themselves. And so we mentioned how this time of year is hard. And I think of a sweet family I had just about 3 weeks ago, and they were taking care of their mom, doing the very best they could, but they did not realize that she was dying. And so when I went to that home, they had been offered hospice before with another company, but were like, no, because people think hospice is a 4-letter word. And I used to fight against that, but now I'm like, yeah, it is a 4-letter word because it means care, it means home, it means love. So hospice is a 4-letter word, but I went in there and just talked to them. We have to find that great balance between truth and love and compassion. And they chose to put their mom on hospice. They took great care of her, and she passed away within about 4 days. And she passed away on Thanksgiving, actually. And it just broke my heart for them because it's just so difficult. But if we hadn't been in there, she would have been in the hospital. She probably would have been intubated. They wouldn't have been able to spend time with her. She was surrounded by family. Her house was full. And so although people don't like to talk about hospice, it is something that we're hoping to kind of just reconcile the gap between fear and reality when it comes to hospice, because the basic question is, what do you want the last few days, weeks, months, or years of your life to look like? So when we're talking with someone who Medicare says is hospice appropriate, Medicare has a checklist that we go by. So if they have cardiac issues, if they're short of breath, if they've had hospitalizations, if their appetite's low, if they are losing weight, even if they're eating, then Medicare says that makes them appropriate for hospice. There's other diagnoses that make you appropriate for hospice, liver failure. I would say the majority of our patients are Alzheimer's and senile degeneration of the brain. We used to be able to use other diagnoses, failure to thrive. What was the other one, Josh? Dementia. We can't use dementia anymore.
Really?
Yeah. We have to say it has to be documented as Alzheimer's or senile degeneration of the brain.
Parkinson's?
Parkinson's, yes. Parkinson's is one. ALS, sir.
Parkinson's has to have a sub-diagnosis to go along with it now.
Okay.
Another ADL.
Medicare just thinks periodically will make change in what's acceptable
Yeah.
Wow.
diagnosis.
Yeah, Medicare, and they run the game. We have to abide by them. And so talking about hospice and even palliative care, because when most people hear the phrase palliative care, they want to put up their dukes, they're ready to fight, but it's very different. Palliative is just a nurse practitioner coming in once a month while you go to all your other providers, and they kind of advocate for you. So when I go into my patients' homes as a palliative nurse practitioner, say their blood pressure's high, I call their provider, say, hey, their blood pressure's high. They're on 5 milligrams of Norvasc. Can we bump that up to 10? Instead of the patient having to call and wait 3 days and say, oh, you got to come in for an appointment. We just kind of streamline things with palliative care. And again, most people don't know the differences. And so when you say palliative, they get afraid. In the community, there is a very big difference. In the hospital, those phrases are used interchangeably, usually. And so as a hospice nurse practitioner, I have found that no matter what your life looks like, most people are afraid of death. Most people are worried about what their families are going to do after they die. Most people still have to work. So they're like, how can I die when I still owe this much on my house and my kids, my wife? And so as a hospice team, when we come in, and I'm sure most of you know this, we're not there like, hey, did you know you're dying? You're dying. Did you know you're dying? That's not what we do. We just come in and support that person. We make their lives easier because they don't have to go out to the emergency department anymore. They don't have to go to dialysis. They don't have to go to 3 different appointments in 1 week. They just stay home. They watch The Price is Right or whatever they want. They eat whatever they want. Their grandkids come and play with them, whatever they want that to look like. Some patients tell me, I want the rest of my life to look like dialysis 3 times a week, going to the hospital at least once a month, and possibly dying with a ventilator. And if that is their goal, because I'm on their bus, that is my goal. and I will fight for that. But most people, once we get to the point where we say, okay, my team has done all they can, and I don't want to do all that anymore, and they make the decision to move forward to hospice, their lives slow down. We have an amazing team. Like I said, the nurse practitioner for palliative is just me. I'm like, hello, once a month, how are you? But with hospice, you've got a nurse at least twice a week. You've got a CNA at least twice a week. You've got a social worker, a chaplain, a bereavement specialist, volunteers. It is, I think of it like a clown car where we all come, we're just piling out like, hey. But we are there to support the patient, support the family. We provide just loving, compassionate encouragement. We pray, our chaplain sings. We become a part of your family. And when there are difficult discussions that need to take place, like, okay, your mom is changing day to day. And so we probably have days to a few weeks. When those conversations have to take place, we already have this rapport with you, that we're not having to break this awful news when you don't know us. We really become your family. And so you all do not need hospice or palliative care at this point. But if you know anyone in your life who, palliative is for symptoms, chronic disease management, that's for people who are living and want to get better. So we come in, we address depression, anxiety, constipation, diarrhea, nausea, swelling, chest pain, shortness of breath, whatever that symptom is, we link hands with your provider and we address those symptoms. We give recommendations. Hospice is for people who are dying, but none of us know. We're not sovereign. We don't know how many days, weeks, or life or years we have left. We really don't. And so our goal is to be there as long as you need us. Some people graduate from hospice, most people don't. And most people at the end of their life, they are grateful that they were able to choose what that end looked like. They were able to make decisions. And I would say the best gift we can give our family, since it's Christmas, is to have very clear discussions with them about our end of life goals. Because our families love us, and if something awful happens, most people are going to lean toward do everything you can, do everything, no matter what the prognosis looks like. And that's a very difficult discussion to have, but I would say that is the best gift you can give your kids, your wife. And the 3 questions are, if my heart stops, do I want CPR? We used to say DNR, but now we say allow a natural death, which basically means for most people who have chronic disease and their heart stops, it's like your car stops in the middle of the road and you might be able to get it started if you beat on it enough, but it's never going to be the same. That's what CPR is. Studies show that 7% of patients who are 70 and older who have an unwitnessed cardiac event in the community are only 7% of them will survive or respond to CPR. So less than 10%. So if you watch ER on TV, everybody gets saved. Or there's this new Love Boat show where they're always doing like dialysis on the ship. And you guys, it's crazy. Everybody gets saved. But that is not reality. So the first question, if your heart stops, do you want CPR? If you cannot breathe, do you want either to be ventilated where air is forced into your lungs, or do you want comfort measures, which at that point you would be on hospice, or there's something in between where you don't get intubated, but you get IV fluids, you get IV antibiotics, things like that. And then the last question, if you cannot eat, do you want a peg tube put in? And there are 3 options for that. Indefinitely, like keep that peg tube in as long as I can tolerate it, or keep it in for a defined period of time, or I don't want a peg tube at all. So those are the 3 questions that we ask at the end of life. CPR, like, do you want that? Do you want to be ventilated? Do you want a peg tube? You may not know. I would encourage you to think about that and then share it with your children, your families, so that when that very difficult time comes, they say, I know what she wanted, and I'm going to honor my mom's wishes. No matter how I feel, I'm going to honor that. And so it's been very nice talking with you guys. I'm glad you were able to meet 2 of my besties. And I have a podcast called Ask Me About Hospice. It's on Spotify. And it is really a lot of what I'm talking about here. I talk about medication and how some people think we just come in and rush people to heaven. That is not what we do. But yeah, so ask me about hospice. I love hospice. I love psych. If you ever have any questions, I promise you I'm willing to help. I think you'll have my contact info.
My mother was on hospice for 2 years.
Yeah. So yes, so we have to tell you, do I need to?
Yeah, well, yeah, we are.
Well, Medicare requires us to say that hospice is a 6-month benefit. And what that means is you kind of get 6 months free, but not really. If you're doing better, we will discharge you. But at that 6-month mark, then a nurse practitioner comes in and has to document, yes, she's still appropriate because of this. Because Medicare is like, hey, look, we said she was hospice appropriate. But if they're still declining, but slowly, which we often see when people are well taken care of, they can stay on hospice. They have to have changes though.
Thank you so much.
Yes.